Remnant TV's most important video of the year hits 1 million views by triggering the climate change religious zealots on X. Speaking of lunatics, AOC sets Elon Musk straight.
In this country, we hate Nazis.
That's telling them, Sandy. Speaking of Nazis, big trouble in Little Davos.
Also factor in not only who's won, which is Trump, but who's lost, which is to say us.
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
Meanwhile, Trump reverses engines and goes full-on pro-life, pro-family, and anti-woke with the 2025 Right to Life March in D.C. And JD Vance says Francis's crackdown on the Latin Mass was just plain wrong. Question, can this guy survive the next 4 years of open season on woke? Hello again, all you godly clans of Christian believers around the world. I'm Michael Matt. This is the Remnant Underground. I just can't believe the news that Walter just passed on to me as we started tonight. Walter, is this true? Joe Biden has become a Freemason?
Apparently so, yeah.
Which lodge? Do we know?
Yeah, this is called the Grand Lodge of South Carolina.
Okay.
It's all good.
You can't really make this stuff up. I mean, this is the Catholic president before he goes out, just to make darn sure that everybody knows he's a full-blown apostate, worthy of excommunication. He's a pro-abort, marries a divorcee. For a while there, he was posing as a Protestant minister when he was marrying gay guys. Remember that thing, as vice president? And now, as he's leaving, I'm a Freemason too, man. He's like the poster child for Vatican II Catholicism. And poor dear Francis is over there freaking out about traditional Catholics and trying to make fun of traditional Catholics and run them out of the world, out of the church, as a threat to the church, traditional Catholic. You just can't make it up. I want to start off tonight with an apology. An apology to our friends down under. One of the downsides now of doing a show like we do, one that's largely unscripted, is that on occasion, well, even the best misspeak. And last week I misspoke when I referred to Australia as a godforsaken country. And man, did I hear about it from our friends down under. And I don't blame them. Well, I'll explain. Let's just start talking about COVID. This is what we all, to our horror, even long before COVID, when they took all the guns away from the Australians. Remember this years ago, like $10 or something? Turn your gun in, we'll give you $10. They completely, like Adolf Hitler just erased the ability to fight back in Australia, which was shocking because everybody always thought of Crocodile Dundee.
That's a knife.
Then during COVID, we all started seeing things like this happening down under.
So Howard Springs is the biggest COVID camp in Australia, isn't it? It's a huge network of cabins that is built to house potentially infected people.
Yeah, but you can't leave your balcony to go to the fence to talk to somebody else. That's just obvious, yeah?
So if I was
Again,
at that balcony...
It doesn't have to make sense. So there has to be lines everywhere drawn, yes? And one of the lines is you cannot leave your balcony and you cannot go to someone else.
Yikes, look at that. I mean, Walter, that's what happens when they take away your guns. They'll never let them take away your guns. They stick you in a camp and tell you not to cross yellow lines or they're going to take you out. That was, our hearts really went out to our Australian friends during COVID. It was unbelievable. It seemed like it was as on a par with China, in terms of what they were doing to their own people. And to us, it just looked a lot like the godless Soviet Union, the godless Nazi regime, of the past. But of course, and this is the part that I forgot to mention, a lot of Catholic Aussies fought like true heroes down there. I knew a bunch of them. I even worked with a few of them. I did videos with them, many of whom they even went to jail for a time down in Australia. So, and then our own Australian correspondent, Kathy Clubb, who writes for this paper on a regular basis and over at remnantnewspaper.com, was sending us regular updates during COVID of folks under house arrest, their kids getting sick and getting jabbed and forcibly. All this stuff was going on. It seemed like a pretty godless state down under. But obviously, God has not forsaken our friends and allies in Australia, many of whom I know very well. They used to walk the pilgrimage together with us, and we got to know a lot of them. Even if their government has forsaken God, just as the Biden administration, Freemason Biden, they were doing that here in the States. So I wasn't trying to say the United States is great and God's here, whereas this is God's country and Australia is God-forsaken. But I do. I do apologize to the thousands of Australians who watch this show. You guys, you know I love you. We're all together on this. We're allies, we're clans, we're friends. And I assure our viewers that this now is what Catholic counter-revolution looks like down under.
Very good English.
Before we get started, also, I want to do just a brief follow-up to last week's show. And this was when we were talking about this new autobiography of his H called Hope, in which Francis, of course, accuses traditional Catholics of rigorism and being part of a culture of backwardism, wherein their young traditional priests, he says, dress up to conceal a mental imbalance, emotional deviation, behavioral difficulties, and a personal problem. We were saying this the other day. Can you imagine the Dalai Lama doing this, like coming out every few months now, having a press conference and just ripping into the Tibetan monks as a bunch of backwards, rigorous losers? It's so personal. It's like, Francis, man, this is so cringy. Like, stop it. You do this on your own. Yeah, they're your own. But there he is. There's Francis. Now, this papal condemnation of how people look and how they dress and how they pray, it's not something that Francis came up with on his own. You know what I mean? This is a really important point. We're going to spend some time over the next couple of shows, at some point I hope, really kind of going into this again. Because this is all part of, class, take out your pencils, write this down. Everything that Francis is doing, the attack on liturgy, the attack on hierarchy, the attack on how people dress and monsignors and titles like this, it's all part of the foundational event in Francis's life, the thing that Francis patterns his entire pontificate on, and that is the 1965 Pact of the Catacombs, or the Catacombs Pact, which took place in the Domitilla Catacomb in Rome, beneath the streets of Rome, on the very eve of the close of the Second Vatican Council. It was led by council fathers who went down into the catacombs and made a de facto declaration of war on the traditional Catholic liturgy, traditional Catholic practice, traditional Catholic theology. Now, we've done a lot of work on this Catacombs Pact, including traveling to Rome and doing a piece on that pact down in that very same catacomb, Domitilla Catacomb, not too long ago. Here's a bit of the original work that we did on the Catacombs Pact down here in the underground, which really is now, it really and truly is the Rosetta Stone to understanding this seemingly bizarre attacks on tradition that the Holy Father is involved with. Well, it's not so bizarre if you understand this thing called the Catacombs Pact. But before we get to that, we have to talk about the bizarre middle-of-the-night ritual that took place beneath the streets of Rome way back in 1965. It was called the Catacombs Pact.
92-year-old Father Luigi Battazzi is the last known survivor of a secret pact that experts say may have influenced Pope Francis. Signed 50 years ago at the time of Vatican II by Catholic bishops in this underground church in Rome. Called the Pact of the Catacombs, it vowed to create a poor church for the poor, the same church Pope Francis says he wants today.
There's a link right down here. Please watch that entire video at that link so you can understand, again, what's really going on here. Oh, first, I have some very important news before we get to that. Our first viral video of 2025 over at X, formerly Twitter, has topped the 1 million view mark. I want to share this with you before we go any further. Just this past week, topped 1 million views. Now, this may be the most important video ever produced by any human being in the history of the world. And I want to share it with you tonight. Are you ready? Cameraman, prepared? Yep. Here we go. Beautiful Minnesota experiment. Here we are. On three?
Yeah.
Okay. 1,
3,
2,
2,
3. Look at that.
Look at all that.
this silly thing picked up 1 million views, partly because we were trolling the left with it, because in the tweet, I just simply wrote, so yeah, global warming, that's what this is, right? And this brought down the wrath of hordes of these poor, ridiculous uber believers in climate change over at X, these religious zealots, because that's what it is, of course. I mean, climate change hysterics, that's a religion. It's got a creed, it's got priests, it's got everything. And so, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I love trolling lefty idiots, and that's what we did. Picked up 1 million views. And I want to thank those humorless nerds over there on X who got so exercised over me and my 13-year-old son fooling around with a pitcher of boiling hot water on a 20 degrees below zero night that they helped push this video over the 1 million mark, proving once again that you can always count on the wokesters to have absolutely zero sense of humor. And speaking, of course, of climate hysterics, climate zealots, I've got a t-shirt that I would truly like to sell you guys. Here it is, the I Don't Care t-shirt, the top of which is I don't care about climate change, which I truly don't. I mean, this goes back to my creed. If we can all become apostates and heretics of the new woke religion, they can't do anything about it, right? You just don't care. I don't care about climate change. I don't care about a woman's right to choose. I don't care about any of it. I don't care about your pronouns. You know what I mean? Truly, truly don't care about your pronouns. So shut the HE double hockey sticks up about that too. See, that's kind of fun. Now, let's get serious. Moving on to the inauguration. Again, so far, so weird. You saw today was the March for Life. Trump was out he gave a message live stream. Vance was there in person. What does it all mean? Well, if you know, leave it in the comment box and I'll try to figure it out too, because a lot of people are saying, wait a minute now, you guys said you were pro-abortion pills.
But just to be clear, you support mifepristone being accessible.
Yes, Kristen, I do.
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
And now they go out there for the pro-life march and they don't say anything about that. So obviously what I think we're looking at, everybody always knew from the very start during the debate and up into including the election, that Kamala Harris was going to be much worse than Trump. That was never the point. The point was, can we vote for guys who say that they're pro-abortion, right? That was the whole problem. That was it in a nutshell. It was always a conscience issue. And we're not going to go back and litigate that. I want to talk about that a little bit at the end of the show. But what are we looking at? Was it a case of the ends justifying the means? Was it a case of Trump saying, I am sick and tired of the Democrats being able to win election after election by pulling out these moral issues like abortion and gay marriage and then just trouncing the good guys? Was that what it was? Because he's not a daily communicant. He's not a Catholic. Was that what it was? Sort of the ends justifying the means? I asked a friend. I said, what do you think's going on here? What is Trump doing here, like with Israel and anti-Semitism and abortion? This is before the election. He said, Trump at this point will say anything to win this election. So this all becomes very interesting. We're going to have a lot more conversations about it because I, for one, also thought it was very unfair that the Democrats just got to campaign on abortion and then they had two questions with which they could destroy the good guys. Do you believe in a woman's right to choose? Do you believe in gay marriage? And if the good guy answered those two questions wrong, the media jumped on it and it was over. So all of us were kind of looking at this going, maybe that's what they decided to do. The fact that they went out and got Elon Musk and people like that, billionaires and oligarchs and the head of Apple and the head of Google to do this, I mean, we got to watch it carefully, friends. Don't confuse this with some sort of a miracle from on high. I mean, obviously, they made a very calculated decision to go out and beat the Democrats at their own game, which meant to come off sounding like they are pro-abortion. Are they pro-abortion? That's what we're going to find out. But the first hurdle was taken care of today when they went to the mall and said all the right things, and the entire world once again got to see the leader of the free world, President Donald Trump, sounding a very pro-life message. So I would say Trump, Vance, the Republicans heard our voice, heard our protest, thanks be to God. Trump, after all was said and done, did not use his first day in office to do some things that we were concerned about. Remember, he said first day in office he was going to condemn anti-Semites on college campuses. Well, there hasn't been a word about that with all the things that he did, all the things that he said, which were very good. Most of them I thought they were just great, fantastic. I don't know if he's going to pull through on all of them, pull them off, but wow, it was good to hear. But nothing about anti-Semitism, which I think portends something for what's going to happen in the Mideast, right? So I think that Trump is actually waking up to what Israel and the increasingly unhinged Bibi Netanyahu, what he's really up to. And again, Trump's very proud of the ceasefire, which he helped to broker, and we were all very supportive of that. And so I think Trump's going to work with Putin in the Russia-Ukraine thing to get that one done. And I hope when they get done, they can put Zelensky in jail for the rest of his life, which is precisely where that lunatic belongs. And then all eyes turn to Israel. What's going to happen? One of Trump's devotees has already, a guy who was pretty important, I thought, to this administration, he's already jumped ship. Vivek has gone abruptly, departing the administration. Now, why did this happen? I don't know. He said it was because he wants to run for governor of Ohio or something. I'm not sure. But I wonder if maybe it has something to do with this.
If Israel wants to, at long last, abandon the myth of a two-state solution, Israel should go ahead and abandon a two-state solution. The rest of the Arab world can absorb Palestinians just as the Jews absorbed their people out of 22 countries they were kicked out of since 1948. I would love nothing more than for the IDF to put the heads of the top 100 Hamas leaders on stakes and line them up on the Israel-Gaza border as a sign that October 7, 2023 will never happen again. That is Israel's decision to make, not ours. That is what David Ben-Gurion would tell Israel to do. That is what George Washington would tell the United States to do.
Sheesh. Breathe, Vivek. Breathe, man. What are you doing? I just don't think that's going to be part of the Trump administration, and I think that's why he took off. I have nothing to base that on other than it was a very abrupt departure, and he seems to be one of the few that's still out there talking like that. That's crazy talk. So he's gone now, and Trump is sounding considerably less hawkish, as Bibi Netanyahu was conspicuous by his absence from the inauguration. Now, I wonder why that is. Maybe it was because Trump retweeted this video?
And the guy's nothing if not obsessive. And he's still trying to get us to fight Iran this day, this week. He's a deep, dark son of a bitch, sorry to tell you.
Trump just kind of retweets that. And so that's very interesting. Pretty much saying whatever he needed to say to get elected seems to be what was going on as far as Israel is concerned too, whether the subject was abortion or Israel or Russia or whatever. And again, now the trick is for all of us to see how Trump is going to follow up with all this stuff. What was just part of politics? What's true? What's he going to be doing? Nobody knows for sure. Another news about the inauguration, I'm not too worried about Elon Musk, who let his autism get the best of him here. Now, I have no idea what he's doing. I don't know what's happening, what that all means, but he's an odd duck. And again, he has the autism by his own admission. But that's not a Nazi. I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. I remember when we used to quote Elon every now and then because he has these fantastic things like about, overpopulation and the birth rate and all that. And when we would quote him, the holy people would just excoriate me. He's the Antichrist. He's the evilest guy in the world, right? Then he gets this gig. Don't fall for it. Yeah. And he gets this gig with Donald Trump. And I'm not kidding. We really are getting people, sweethearts, that are saying, Elon and Donald are going to save God's angel babies. That's really true. Elon Musk is such a pro-life fella. And I'm like, well, we'll see, maybe. So I'm not a huge fan of Elon, although he does seem to be making a lot more sense now than he used to make. But that's not a Nazi salute, friends. And anybody who says that it is a bit of a nut job, right? It's a total nothing burger, and everybody knows it. Even the ADL defended it. It's not a Nazi salute. And is anybody getting tired of this every single time? Oh, it's a Nazi. There's another Nazi. The Nazis are hiding under the rug. The Nazis are up the tree. Look at the Nazis. They're all around. Nazi. And this time, in this case, it provided the impetus for the dumbest bimbo in Washington to show off her history chops. Because guess what, friends? AOC, she doesn't like Nazis.
This is the United States of America. And I don't care what Elon Musk is doing behind a presidential seal. In this country, we hate Nazis.
What an absolute idiot. It's just so embarrassing what we got going on in American politics now. It's idiocracy all over again, And you wonder, what would these lunatics do without Adolf Hitler? What are we now, 70, 80 years later?
Two of probably the most foundational defining things about American history is that we beat the Confederates and we beat the Nazis.
I mean, they don't even believe in evil, right? They don't believe in good and evil at all. And yet whenever they get their little pea brains exercised about something or someone, you're a Nazi! That's all they have. Can you imagine being that stupid? It's all you have? Because that's just the last refuge of clueless morons who have nothing else to say. They got no arguments to make. They have no points to raise. Right, there's nothing going on up here, but you know what? They've seen a lot of Nazi movies.
In this country, we hate Nazis.
Nazis make excellent villains.
Now, speaking of Nazis, our guy Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, was in Davos this week breaking down freedom of speech for us, defining it for the new world, the new world order. Now, his position can basically be summed up as freedom of speech for me, but not for thee, right? Not for thee.
Just to repeat what I already said, we have the freedom of speech in Europe and in Germany. Everyone can say what he wants, even if he is a billionaire. And what we do not accept is if this is supporting extreme right positions. And that is what I would like to repeat again.
This guy is serious, and he's at the World Economic Forum. He just said it. He just said freedom of speech is fine unless it's right-wing freedom of speech. Now, that's not protected, because we disagree with that. And there's your lunatics of Davos in a nutshell. That's it. Freedom of speech as long as it agrees with us, you know? But I shouldn't make fun of Olaf, because he's sitting next to Klaus. I don't know what Klaus is doing there. He's retired, isn't he? I keep forgetting that he's not dead. Apparently he's still going, but taking his darn little sweet time to find that nursing home where he's going to take his pudding out in the main dining room, and that'll be his great reset. But these guys are having a really, really bad week over in Davos. And we showed some pictures the other day of Davos with many, many empty chairs. People are done. And this is what I mean. How do you look at the Trump victory and see what it's doing to Davos and not kind of smile? It's pretty cool. And this, again, is the kind of thing based on the fact what we were seeing with Trump. I mean, the video that we got 30 million views on was all about Trump and Davos. So this whole Davos versus Trump thing has been going on for 8 years, long, long time. And it is interesting to see Trump's power based on the grassroots, on all of us, on pro-life America, pro-family, pro-God America, how much it takes a chunk out of Davos, right? So when it comes to the Great Reset, or the Fourth Industrial Revolution, these guys are done, and they're pretty much admitting it now. Now here's Yale University professor Walter Reed at the World Economic Forum in Davos this past week, pretty much saying it's lights out.
I'd add that we need to also factor in not only who's won, which is Trump, but who's lost, which is to say us. And I guess I would throw into that the epitome of the us who is losing here is Europe. That the European Union and by and large its member states have misread the direction where events were going.
Trump spoke also at the World Economic Forum this week and basically told these guys, in no uncertain terms, to go to hell.
And it's a strong, sovereign nation. In addition, I'm pleased to report that America is also a free nation once again. On day one, I signed an executive order to stop all government censorship. No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas.
We are not looking for a prophet in Donald Trump. We never were. We always said this. Is there an opportunity here? He's not the second coming of Christ. He's not Charlemagne. He's Donald Trump. He is what he is, and this is war. So don't take every positive critique that we make of the Trump administration, the Trump phenomenon now. Don't take that as a blanket endorsement of everything that he says and does. It's not that. It's not. It never will be that. This is a mixed bag. But there are going to be many good things that come out of this too, out of this administration as well. We've got to jump on that. That's our job. That's called Catholic action, doing the very best you can in a moment like this. We don't live in a Catholic confessional state. This is the reality that we've been handed, and so you got to try to exploit it to the benefit of the Catholic cause. And to that end, hero-worshiping Donald Trump is just the flip side of the never Trump coin. Both are, in my opinion, counterproductive. It's not going to happen here, right? And that's basically my editorial stance moving forward on this. So I think we can be happy for the way this is, at least in the moment, the way it's working out. Because in many ways, as I said, we're better off now. We're in a better place now, a more honest place. We don't have to play let's pretend. You know? I remember that where people were like, oh, I know he's divorced a couple times and remarried, but Melania is a Catholic, and isn't it sweet? She's looking at a Mary statue. Oh, it's just so, boy, oh boy, this is a Catholic. No, not this time, right? Melania, for example, unfortunately, you know, she's not some sweet little Catholic mom who's on our side, friends, and we're not pretending, and nobody is. I was kind of shocked, in fact, when I saw Catholic priests seem to completely forget and just put it out, out of their mind, talking about her hat and how pretty she is, blah, 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 totally forgetting that she had outed herself in the run-up to the election as a pro-abort, an unapologetic pro-abort.
Melania Trump is publicly breaking with her husband on abortion rights. The former First Lady released a video promoting her upcoming memoir where she's signaling support on abortion rights.
Individual freedom is a fundamental principle.
We haven't forgotten that, right? That's a problem. That's a big problem. And we need to continue to say to Donald Trump, to Team Trump, we find that to be offensive. We're not approving of that, right? We haven't forgotten that. And if Melania Trump truly is a Catholic, she will recant. She will apologize for that, right? Now the election is behind us. And this is the way it's been with Republicans ever since I can remember. Nancy Reagan was pro-abortion. Every single pro-life Republican president had a pro-choice, pro-abortion wife. Did you know that? Every single one. It's part of the Republican strategy, right? So it's happened again now. Here we go again, back to the future. That's just the reality. We have no intention of pretending like that didn't happen just because we're very happy that things like an attack on Davos and an attack on the New World Order, attack on the Great Reset is now in full swing out of Washington, right? That's good. So it's, it's hit and miss. It's got to pick and choose what's going on here with our eyes wide open. We're going into this with our eyes wide open. And whatever Trump does that supports our anti-woke, anti-synodal, anti-Francis Church of Accompaniment agenda, we are going to exploit it to the hilt. And we are not operating under any delusions that Trump is some sort of passionate Christian pro-lifer. He is what he is. He's very honest in what he is, right, friends? So we don't want to project. We don't want to be silly about this. We want to be realistic. And I think we're much more in a position to be much more realistic now than we were even in 2016. You don't become a never Trumper. You don't lionize him and become a Trump worshiper. I don't think that helps him at all. I think he needs to hear our honest, Catholic, conservative, pro-life voice constantly, right? That's what he needs. That's what the best thing is for him. That along with our prayers. Pray for him, right? That he looks at like that whacked out bishop, lady bishop thing that was going on. She sounded like something right out of the Synod on Synodality. That's Francis. That's Father Jimmy Martin. Well, he's going to look at that and he's going to say, that's what modern woke Christianity looks like. He is going to move in a more traditional direction, right? Maybe, perhaps. That's what we're going to try to make happen here. And you got Vance, who already has a more traditional leaning in a lot of ways. He was great on Ukraine. I don't know where he is now on Israel, but he was very good on Ukraine. And this is politics. And we need to wait now and see how this kind of pans out. As we had to do with Ronald Reagan, as we had to do with the Bush boys and all the rest. And we're more than happy that Trump, for example, has stripped Tony from the land of baloney of his government-funded security protection. This is fantastic. No matter how you voted for him, this is great stuff. Going after Tony, Fauci, right? So we're delighted that these things are happening. And we need to have Trump explain what he's going to do on abortion. And to an extent, he went out on the mall for the march, and he did sound very pro-life, So that's what the whole point of this has been. My daughter, in fact, was at the pro-life march, and she said people there were extremely honest about being very concerned about what the compromises that had been made on abortion, really very concerned. Some of them didn't vote for him at all. Others were voted under protest. But they were very glad to see that at least he came out and stood with them and maybe is admitting that he was playing politics. We just don't know. But at least he said the right thing about the life issues.
To all of the very special people marching today in this bitter cold, I know your hearts are warm and your spirits are strong because your mission is just very, very pure to forge a society that welcomes and protects every child as a beautiful gift from the hand of our Creator.
I know we were all really disappointed with the compromises that were made on the life question during the election. But it seems to me that our voices, the voices of the pro-life movement, raised in protest and demanding that conservatives not back away from this issue, it seems to me those voices were heard. Because from what we can tell here in Washington, there's a genuine desire on the part of Trump and the Trump administration, the Vice President, to stand with us to assure that moving forward, there's no intention to move away from the most important question in the world today, to stand for life, to stand for family, to stand for God. I'm Katherine Matt, reporting from the Remnant newspaper. God bless.
See, this is what I mean about being in a better place in a way, a more honest place. We got to be the watchdogs now. Even our young people, our young students are out there on the mall being watchdogs on this. They're not stupid. They're not gullible. They're not falling for it again. But they're cautiously optimistic that something good, with the grace of God, might happen. And that's right where traditional Catholics need to be. Because it provides 4 years for us, again, to work within the Catholic Church of wokeness, the Church of accompaniment, the synodal church. If this, what's happening right now in American politics, is going to take a huge chunk out of the Francis Church woke Church of accompaniment. Can the 87-year-old Francis survive this? I don't think so.
So, one of the things that I'm just not totally sure how to deal with as a public figure who sometimes does disagree, and agree too with the Holy Father on some core issues is, what is my role, especially as a new Catholic, a Catholic that has some public voice? Like, what should I do when, for example, the Pope issues an order on the Latin Mass that I think is not the right order for the Church? Even though I'm not a big Latin Mass guy, that things like that felt a little bit, it felt wrong.
So what's Team Francis going to think of that? You got a Catholic now who's not a Freemason, by the way, but a proud practicing Catholic as VP in the United States, talking about the fact that Francis was dead wrong in the Latin Mass. These are the kind of opportunities. And if I could talk to Vance right now and say, Vance, man, pull back on this abortion pill thing. Maybe you didn't understand. Little girls are dying from that pill. That pill is deadly. Do everything you possibly can to get the FDA to recall this thing. It's deadly. If you didn't know what it was before when you said that thing about, we support the abortion pill, which is responsible for 63% of all abortions in this country, well, now you know, Mr. Vance, and we're on your side. We're pulling for you. We're praying for you. But you got to get rid of that pill. And you certainly have to get rid of any support for that pill sooner rather than later, because it's a scandal, okay? So this is the kind of conversation we want to have. But that's still talking about the Latin Mass. That's got to put the fear of the Lord, if anything can, into Team Francis, And here he is again. Here's JD Vance out on the mall just yesterday now talking about the issue of abortion and sounding fairly passionately pro-life. So maybe he's moving away from the political expediency that he was plugging in and told to plug in during the run-up to the election.
I would get frustrated that people could look at a picture of a baby on an ultrasound and see not a human being, but just a clump of cells. But one of the things that being a father has taught me, and one of the things that being in politics has taught me over the last couple of years, is that it is a blessing to know the truth, and the truth is that unborn life is worthy of protection. So please, go forth, not with frustration, but with joy. We are joyful to march for life. We are joyful to know that picture on an ultrasound, that is a picture of a baby with hopes and dreams and potential to come.
And as I said, waiting in the wings, this is why I think we're in a pretty good position. And this is what we were trying to say before the election. Make sure pro-life stays really, really relevant to this thing. Stay up, threaten them, give them a mandate. You're not going to keep doing this. They have to defend life. And now waiting in the wings is this guy, Ron DeSantis, ready to go to war for the unborn, I think, in 2028, because everybody knows the pro-lifers are not going to do this again. We may have given Trump a little bit of a pass because it was unclear what was going on there. It's not going to continue.
We were told since Dobbs by people, political consultants, pundits, many people that are more establishment Republicans, that standing for the right to life was somehow terrible politics, you wouldn't get elected, all this other stuff. Well, I can tell you I'm proof that that's not true, because when Dobbs was overturned, I ran on a pro-life platform on the Heartbeat Protection Act, and I want the largest victory that any Republican has ever won in the history of the state of Florida.
I think we're all united, and we're ready to do everything we possibly can to exercise influence over the Trump administration, the Trump White House, which we've been saying from 2016 was the only reason, the major reason that we voted for him was so that the good guys, the guys in the white hats, would have influence on the Oval Office, on the White House, on the administration, and not the guys in the dark hat, not the guys in the red pajamas, the little demons in the Democrat side of things, right? So this is the opportunity that presents us. They're not perfect, they're very flawed, but who are they listening to? Well, right, yesterday they were on the mall listening to us, right? So let's exploit that. Let's see where it takes us. Just exactly as the guys on the left are doing right now. That's how the game is played. So you got Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook at the inauguration pretending to have found religion on the free speech front, right? Oh yeah, man, I'm free speech. I'm all in now. Why? Because Trump's in charge. He wants a piece of it, right? He needs that administration to go his way. Bill Gates is doing the same thing. He's out there waving his, Trump, it seems like he's kind of listening to what we're going to say. Gates is claiming that Trump is listening to him. I hope he's not, but here's what Gates is claiming.
I was frankly impressed with how well he showed a lot of interest in the issues I brought up.
Okay, well, I really kind of question that. I don't know if Trump is going to be so silly as to let that lunatic once again torpedo his administration as he did last time with warp speed and all this nonsense. I don't think it's going to happen again, right? So the war is on. But we have to make sure that on our side of things, we exercise maximum influence on Trump, right? Especially now Davos is in despair. Their great reset is dead on arrival. Their forced industrial revolution is nothing, absolute nothing burger. And there are reports that we'd all lost the faith in Jesus Christ that came out of Davos a few years ago. Well, those turned out to be wildly exaggerated, didn't they?
Of course religion is outdated in the 21st century. Most religious people, it's true that you may get many people saying they're religious, but none of them, in the first world at least, in the developed world, to first approximation, actually believe the doctrines of their faith. Catholics don't really believe that when a priest holds a wafer, it turns into the body of Christ. No one really believes that nonsense.
Nice try there, Larry. But God is back and Davos is dead.
Just can't believe that in the end, when it really gets intense, as it is now, that it's Christians, it's people who actually believe the Bible, are the only ones with wisdom who understand what's really going on. They're not shocked at all. And they're not panicked either. They get it. Even if you're not a Christian, which I think you should be because it's true, but even if you're not, you can acknowledge, just having lived here for a while, that is absolutely the way things work.
And that's, friends, is the thing we will conclude with. And that's just happening all over the place right now. And that's the good news, right? No matter what Trump turns out to be, so far he's off to the races, doing some good things, saying a lot of good things. No matter how you voted, no matter how I voted, we got this chance, we got this opportunity. It's going to go on for the next 4 years. The election is over. We stuck it out. As brothers in Christ, we debated, we discussed, we followed our consciences, and that's now in the past. And now we're together. We're united, under no delusions, taking nothing for granted, and ready to fight like hell against the forces of evil that are all around us right now. Right? So, let's see what happens. Praise the Lord for that, and pass the ammunition.